The USS Horizon shuddered violently as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Red clouds of acidic gas swirled below, clashing with flashes of lightning that danced across the sky. Inside the cockpit, Captain Elena Rios gritted her teeth, her hands moving in precise, almost mechanical motions over the console. Hull breach in Sector 7. Shields are failing. The pilot, Jonah, shouted, his voice barely audible over the alarms. Sparks flew along the dashboard and smoke curled in the cockpit like restless ghosts. The planet's gravity was heavier than expected. Horizon groaned under the strain, a deep metallic sound that seemed almost alive. Elena's mind raced. They had come to survey this uncharted world for possible colonization. The signals from their scanners had been unusual, high-energy readings, strange electromagnetic fluctuations, but nothing had prepared them for this. The planet was alive in a way that felt hostile, almost sentient. "Prepare for emergency landing," Elena ordered. "We can't make orbit. We go down now." The landing was chaotic. The ship bucked violently as it pierced the dense atmosphere. Trees, gigantic, black-leaved, and twisting unnaturally, whipped past the windows. A monstrous roar erupted somewhere in the distance, shaking the hull further. Then, with a deafening crash, the Horizon struck the ground, skidding across jagged rocks before finally coming to a halt in a crater-like depression. The crew was thrown from their seats. Alarms shrieked. Warning lights blinked frantically, and the air stank of burning circuits and ozone. Groaning, Elena pulled herself upright. Her uniform was scorched. A thin cut ran across her forehead, but she was alive. Jonah was bleeding from his shoulder, and Lieutenant Merrick's arm hung awkwardly. "Status report," Elena barked, trying to sound calm even though her heart was hammering. "We're alive," Merrick said, his voice tight with pain. "But the hull, it's bad. We're lucky it didn't break completely. Communications are dead. No satellites, no signal." Elena took a deep breath. "We're alone." The crew worked quickly to stabilize the ship. Fires were extinguished, the injured tended, and ration packs pulled out. Outside, the world waited, a vast forest of enormous trees, their leaves glowing faintly in the acidic twilight, and jagged mountains looming in the distance like the spines of a sleeping beast. No sound of civilization. No friendly eyes. Only the alien wind, and the occasional roar of creatures whose shadows danced on the horizon. Jonah checked the ship's sensors. Life signs. A few small creatures, nothing that looks intelligent. But their scale, they're huge. One of them might be 20 meters long. Elena frowned. "Great, so hostile planet, giant predators, and no one to call for help. Perfect." Her voice was bitter, but there was a spark of determination behind it. As night fell, the forest came alive in terrifying ways. Bioluminescent plants pulsed like hearts. In the distance, a pair of glowing eyes stared at them before disappearing into the undergrowth. Shadows moved where there should be none. The crew huddled inside what remained of the bridge, ration packs untouched, listening to the alien noises. Every rustle, every snap of a branch sent their imaginations racing. "We need a plan," Elena said. "We can't stay here. Supplies are limited, and if the creatures are hunting in packs..." Her voice trailed. She didn't have to finish. The threat was obvious. Merrick, who had been silent for most of the crash, finally spoke. "We need to find higher ground. A place we can defend, somewhere the predators can't reach easily." Elena nodded. "Agreed, we'll move at first light." Everyone rest. Tomorrow we survive. Sleep came fitfully. The sounds outside never stopped. The trees seemed to move with a life of their own, twisting and groaning under the alien wind. The ground beneath the ship shifted slightly, reminding them that the planet itself was dangerous. When dawn arrived, it was pale and sickly, the sky tinged with green clouds. The crew stepped outside. The air was thick and heavy, acidic enough that their masks filtered most of it, but not all. The ground was unstable, the rocks jagged, the vegetation crawling with insects the size of their fists. They began their trek to higher ground, moving cautiously. Jonah led the way, using sensors and makeshift tools to detect movement in the dense forest. Merrick carried the injured in packs, and Elena scanned for anything that might threaten them. Hours passed. The alien wildlife tested their resolve constantly. Giant insects swooped from the trees. Carnivorous plants lashed out, their vines thick as cables. At one point, a massive predator, larger than any creature they had ever seen, charged from the forest. Its hide was armored, its teeth jagged like obsidian. The crew barely escaped, taking refuge on a rocky ledge. "It's hunting us," Jonah whispered, voice shaking. It's intelligent. I've never seen a creature that smart. Elena clenched her fists. Then we'll be smarter. We adapt or we die. By nightfall, they reached a plateau overlooking the forest. It was not perfect, but it was defensible. The crew set up makeshift shelters using wreckage from the horizon and whatever natural materials they could find. Fires were kept low to avoid attracting attention, and watch shifts were arranged. As they huddled together, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Humanity had always been fragile. Other worlds, other species, they seemed far stronger, far faster. Yet here they were, small, injured, outnumbered, and yet still alive. Survival wasn't just about strength. It was about ingenuity, courage, and refusing to give up. Hours later, as the crew drifted into uneasy sleep, Elena remained awake, staring at the alien sky. A strange glimmer caught her eye, a movement in the fog, something enormous yet unmistakably humanoid. She froze, her pulse quickening. "Jonah," she whispered. "Do you see that?" He squinted into the mist. "I think so, but no human could survive here. Could they?" Elena's heart raced. Maybe not ordinary humans, but maybe. The legends were true. The figure stepped forward from the fog. Tall, rugged, and moving with terrifying confidence, it paused to look at them. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving only footprints, massive footprints behind. The crew stared in silence. Fear battled hope. Curiosity battled caution. Elena finally spoke, her voice steady, though her mind raced. "Whatever it is, whatever they are, we're not alone. And maybe, just maybe, help has arrived." But night returned, thick and suffocating, with the sounds of the alien forest closing in around them. The crew huddled together, knowing the next hours could be the hardest of their lives. Every crack, every roar, every shadow could mean death or salvation. Elena looked at her crew, weary and bruised. She knew one thing. Humanity survived because it refused to surrender. And here, on this death world, they would have to prove it all over again. The alien fog thickened, the forest seemed to watch, and somewhere in the distance, another roar shook the plateau. But amidst the fear, a flicker of hope burned. The humans of Earth were not ordinary, and perhaps the legends of the Deathworlders were real. The alien fog clung to the plateau like a living curtain. The crew of the USS Horizon stared at the massive footprints, their minds racing with questions. Who or what could leave marks this size? Their instruments showed no signs of life yet, but the footprints were unmistakably human in shape, though far larger and more robust. "Captain," Jonah whispered, his voice tight with both fear and awe, "are there humans here? On this planet?" Elena shook her head slowly, squinting into the fog. "I don't know, but we're about to find out." She motioned for the crew to stay low, and they cautiously moved down the plateau toward the footprints. The forest below seemed calmer than before, almost as if it were holding its breath. Birds, or something like birds, screamed in the distance, but there was no predator in sight. As they descended, movement caught Elena's eye. A figure appeared, stepping out of the mist with startling ease. It was tall, muscular, and completely confident in its presence, moving like it belonged here. The figure wore a suit of scavenged armor that blended with the alien environment. Its face was partially covered, but the eyes, sharp and intelligent, locked onto Elena's crew. "Stay back," Elena ordered, raising her hand, though she felt a strange hesitation. The figure didn't attack. Instead, it paused, studying them carefully. Another figure emerged, then another. Within moments, at least half a dozen humans appeared from the fog. They were not ordinary humans. Their skin was tanned, toughened by years of exposure. Their movements were precise and fluid. They carried weapons of crude but effective design, and each one radiated a calm, lethal confidence. Merrick whispered, barely audible, "Legends. They're real. The Deathworlders." The first figure stepped forward slowly, deliberately. Its voice was low but clear. "You are far from home," it said. "You do not belong here." Elena straightened. "We are stranded," she said. "Our ship Horizon crash-landed. We need help. Can you help us?" The Deathworlder studied her, eyes scanning every movement. Then almost imperceptibly a nod. "Perhaps. But this world does not forgive weakness. You must prove you can survive." Jonah swallowed hard. "Survive? We barely made it here alive. How can we survive this place?" A second Deathworlder, A tall woman with braided hair streaked with dust and blood spoke. By learning, by adapting, by using your mind and your courage. This world does not care for those who hesitate. You will learn, or you will die. Elena glanced at her crew. Fear was obvious in their eyes, but so was curiosity. They had been pushed to the brink, yet now a chance for survival stood before them. Lead us, Elena said. Teach us what we need to know. The Deathworlders exchanged glances, then silently gestured for the crew to follow. They moved quickly through the forest, never making a sound. The Horizon crew struggled to keep up. Every step was filled with obstacles, gnarled roots, acid-puddled crevices, and the ever-present sense of unseen eyes watching them. Hours later, they arrived at a settlement that seemed almost impossible. Built into the cliffs and trees, it was a blend of natural terrain and human ingenuity. Platforms connected by rope bridges wound around massive trees. Fires burned in protected pits, giving warmth and light. Figures moved among the structures, working without hurry but with clear purpose. Jonah whispered, awestruck. They've survived here? They've made a home. Merrick shook his head. Not just survived, thrived. The first Deathworlder, whose name Elena would later learn was Kale, guided them to a central platform. Rest, eat, heal, tomorrow the lessons begin. Only then will you truly survive. The crew settled in, exhausted but grateful. They were given simple meals of roasted meat, edible roots, and clean water. Though crude, the food was nutritious and filling. Elena noted how every movement in the settlement had purpose. Nothing was wasted. The Deathworlders had clearly learned to turn this hostile planet into a place of survival and strength. That night, as the Horizon crew sat by the fire, they shared stories with the Deathworlders. Elena learned that these humans had been isolated for generations, descendants of early colonists sent to test humanity's limits. Every member had been shaped by the planet's harsh conditions. Physical endurance, mental toughness, and adaptability were not just valued, they were required. You think you are strong, Kyle said, watching them carefully. But you are soft. Your bodies are fragile, your minds weaker. Here, weakness is punished. Every mistake can kill you. Only those who learn quickly can live. Elena nodded, understanding the truth in his words. Then teach us, she said. We are ready to learn. The next morning, the training began. It was grueling. The crew learned to move silently through the forest, to recognize predators by their sounds and smells, to set traps, and to hunt for food. They were forced to rely on their wits rather than technology. Jonah struggled at first, nearly falling victim to a hidden pit trap designed to test alertness. Merrick proved better at improvisation, using sticks and rocks to fashion a small spear. But the Deathworlders were patient teachers. They corrected mistakes without anger, pushing the crew to think faster, act smarter, and trust their instincts. Hours turned into days. The crew grew stronger, more confident. Even injuries healed faster under the Deathworlders' care, thanks to knowledge of medicinal plants and careful observation of each member's limits. Elena noticed a change in herself. She moved with purpose, aware of the forest's dangers, her senses sharpened. She began to see beauty in the deadly landscape, patterns in the trees, signals in the wind, messages in the behavior of predators. Then came the test. A predator had been stalking the settlement for weeks. It was enormous, twice the size of any creature the Horizon crew had seen before. Its skin was plated with thick scales, and its eyes glowed with a dangerous intelligence. The Deathworlders called it the Hunter. Kale gathered the crew. Today you face your first trial. The Hunter does not forgive mistakes. You must work together. You must survive, and you must do what humans do best, think. Elena's heart raced. This was beyond anything they had faced since the crash. Yet she also felt a thrill. This was humanity at its edge. Survival demanded courage, ingenuity, and teamwork, the very traits that defined their species. The Deathworlders and Horizon crew set traps and lures, using natural terrain to their advantage. Every move was calculated. When the Hunter finally appeared, it was more terrifying than anyone imagined. Its roar shook the trees, and its eyes glowed with cold intelligence. The crew remembered every lesson. The sounds of the Hunter's approach, the pressure of the ground beneath their feet, the wind carrying scent. They moved as one. Jonah distracted the creature with noise while Merrick and another Deathworlder triggered a trap. Elena used a high vantage point to coordinate the movements, calling out directions, predicting the hunter's actions. It was a tense, brutal encounter. One wrong move could have meant death, but slowly, methodically, the creature was drawn into the trap, subdued, not killed. For the Deathworlders respected life, even that of dangerous predators. Breathless and shaking, the Horizon crew realized something profound. Humans were capable of mastering even this death world. Kale approached Elena, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You have potential," he said simply. "You are not weak. You are soft, yes, but you are learning, and that is what makes you dangerous." Elena smiled, a mixture of exhaustion and pride. "Then we keep learning, no matter what this planet throws at us." As night fell again, the crew sat around the fire with their new mentors. For the first time since the crash, hope burned brighter than fear. They were still stranded, still on a hostile world, but humans had arrived and humans could adapt. The sun rose pale and weak over the alien forest, casting long, green-tinted shadows. The crew of the Horizon stirred from a restless sleep, muscles sore, minds alert. Training with the Deathworlders had pushed them to their limits, yet something strange had begun to take root. Confidence. For the first time since the crash, they believed survival might not be impossible. Elena rubbed her eyes, staring out at the jagged canopy. She could hear the low hum of the planet, wind weaving through massive trees, distant roars, and the occasional crack of unknown predators. It was not a gentle world, but she also saw potential, patterns, and paths through the chaos. The Deathworlders had taught her that understanding your environment was just as crucial as brute strength. Kyle, the Deathworlder who had first approached them, motioned for the crew to gather. "Today," he said, voice calm but firm, "you face something greater than the hunter. You face the planet itself. Survival is not only fighting creatures. It is understanding danger, reading signals, and trusting each other." The crew listened intently. Marek, his arm now almost fully healed, whispered to Jonah, "I think she means the storms. And the terrain. Every step counts here." Kale led them to a high ridge overlooking a wide valley. The valley's floor was dotted with massive rock formations, twisted vegetation, and creeping fog. From a distance it seemed peaceful, almost beautiful, but the Deathworlders had warned otherwise. "Look closely," Kyle said. "Every tree, every rock, every shadow may be home to predators. Every plant may be poisonous or deadly. You will learn to move as one, to watch for the signals that tell you danger is near." Elena nodded, scanning the valley. Her crew mirrored her focus. They had learned much, but this would be the first time they tested their skills as a unit under real conditions. Kyle handed Elena a crude, hand-carved map of the valley. Symbols indicated danger zones, predator habitats, and safe paths. It was simple, but it represented centuries of knowledge. "Your task," Kale said, "is to cross the valley, gather the herbs and roots marked here, and return. Use your training. Do not rush. Do not panic. And above all, survive." The crew exchanged nervous glances. It seemed like a simple scavenging mission. But the forest itself seemed alive, hostile, and intelligent. Elena led the way. The first challenge came quickly. A sudden movement in the undergrowth revealed a pack of predators, smaller than the hunter but aggressive and fast. They had sharp claws and even sharper instincts. The crew froze for a moment, memories of their first night flooding back. "Move quietly," Elena hissed. "Follow the path, stay close, and don't make sudden movements." Using hand signals learned from the Deathworlders, the crew spread out just enough to avoid being easy targets, yet stayed close enough to respond quickly. Marek tossed a small rock to distract one predator, while Jonah guided another into a natural pit trap formed by the valley's terrain. The predators attacked, but were outmaneuvered. The crew moved fluidly, a small unit of humans learning to think ahead, predict behavior, and trust instincts. They survived their first test. Hours passed. The valley proved more dangerous than anticipated. Acidic rain began to fall, burning exposed skin and corroding some equipment. Massive insects attracted by movement swooped down from the trees. One nearly grazed Jonah, forcing him to dive behind a boulder. Yet every time danger struck, the crew remembered Kale's lessons. Observe, calculate, act with purpose. Slowly they adapted. Elena realized that their minds, more than their bodies, were becoming sharper. Humans had survived countless worlds, she thought, because they could solve problems on the fly. At midday, They reached a patch of the valley marked on the map. Strange, glowing plants grew among jagged rocks. These were medicinal herbs and nutrient-rich roots crucial for survival. But collecting them required care. One misstep could trigger a trap set by nature, or by the creatures that called this valley home. Jonah approached a glowing root cautiously. "This one. It burns on touch," he muttered. Merrick handed him a thick leaf from a nearby tree. Using it as a barrier, he carefully harvested the plant. Each crew member followed suit, learning the delicate dance between caution and necessity. By late afternoon, the crew had gathered enough supplies. The next challenge awaited, the return journey. A sudden tremor shook the valley, causing rocks to fall from cliffs above. The acidic rain intensified, flooding small paths. From the mist, the hunter emerged again. Elena's heart raced. The creature was massive and it moved with purpose. But this time the crew was not panicked. They had learned to read danger, to anticipate moves, to rely on each other. "Spread out. Use the terrain," Elena shouted. They darted among rocks and twisted vegetation, setting small traps and obstacles to slow the hunter. Merrick used a sharpened branch to distract it, while Jonah triggered a rock slide that forced it back momentarily. Elena climbed to a high vantage point, guiding the crew through hand signals and loud calls, predicting the hunter's actions like a chess player. It was tense, almost unbearable. Each member relied on the other's strength and precision. Slowly they maneuvered the hunter away from the path, into a narrow canyon where it could not easily follow. They had survived together. When they finally reached the Deathworlder settlement, every crew member was exhausted, soaked, and battered. Yet the sense of achievement was overwhelming. Kyle approached them, observing silently. Then finally he spoke. "You have learned quickly," he said. "You moved with thought, not fear. You adapted. You survived." Elena felt a swell of pride. "We couldn't have done it without your guidance." "Thank you," Kyle nodded. "We guide, but humans survive because they must. That is your strength. Even the weakest of you have potential. Remember this. Humanity is strongest when it refuses to surrender." That night, around the fire, the crew shared their experiences. Elena watched the alien stars, reflecting on what they had endured. Every challenge had forced them to push beyond their physical limits, but more importantly, they had expanded the limits of their minds. Jonah spoke quietly, almost to himself. "I never thought I'd survive this, and now, I feel like we could survive anything." Merrick smiled, rubbing a scar on his arm. "We've been lucky, yes. But it's more than luck. We've learned, we've adapted, and we've survived where few humans could." Elena nodded, her eyes meeting Kale's across the fire. The Deathworlder's expression was unreadable, but she sensed respect. Humans had proven themselves on this death world, not just through strength, but through ingenuity, courage, and teamwork. The next morning brought another revelation. While exploring a remote ridge beyond the valley, the crew discovered a structure partially buried in alien soil. It was ancient, made of metal unlike any human design, covered in symbols that pulsed faintly with energy. Kyle examined it carefully. "This is not of our world. It is old, it is powerful, and it may explain the strange signals that led your ship here." Elena felt a chill.
"You mean—"
"Someone else is out there?" Kale nodded. "Possibly. You are not the only species in this sector. But the planet tests all who arrive. It teaches. It strengthens. Those who fail are forgotten." The crew realized the truth. Survival was not only a personal challenge. The galaxy itself was a battlefield, filled with dangers both natural and intelligent. They had been prepared by the Deathworlders, but even this was only the beginning. Returning to the settlement, they shared their discovery. The Deathworlders discussed quietly among themselves, their tone grave. Elena understood that humans were being trained for something far larger than the trials of this planet. The survival lessons, the hunter, the storms, the dangerous terrain, were only the first stage. That evening, as fires burned low, Elena stood apart from the group, staring at the stars. "We came here as explorers," she thought. "Stranded, weak, unprepared. But now we are learning, and when we leave we will carry more than survival skills. We will carry proof of what humans can endure and achieve." Somewhere deep in the forest, Kale and the other Deathworlders watched silently. They knew the crew's journey was just beginning. Humanity had potential, yes, but would they survive the ultimate challenges of this galaxy? Elena looked at her crew, weary but determined. No matter what comes next, we survive. We adapt, we overcome. That is what makes us human. The forest was restless. The air hummed with tension, carrying the distant roars of predators and the unsettling rumble of shifting terrain. The crew of the Horizon moved carefully, led by Kale and the Deathworlders. What had once seemed like a terrifying world had become a classroom of survival, but the lessons were about to escalate beyond anything the crew had imagined. "Listen," Kyle whispered, crouching behind a massive boulder. "The hunter is not the only danger today. The planet itself shifts and reacts. The storms are stronger, the ground unstable, and there is a pack of predators moving ahead of you. You must act together or you will fail." Elena nodded, gripping her spear tightly. Her crew had grown stronger, more confident, yet the challenge ahead tested everything they had learned. The first obstacle appeared almost immediately. A series of narrow cliffs blocked their path, rain-soaked and slick. A misstep could send them tumbling into the jagged rocks far below. Marek tested the first ledge, his boots sliding slightly before he balanced. "We need to move as one," he muttered. "No rushing." The Deathworlders spread out to secure the path, using ropes and branches to create temporary footholds. Jonah moved with care, adjusting his pack to prevent slipping. Elena watched closely, guiding the team and noting how far they had come since the crash. Humans were no longer just struggling to survive. They were thriving in the impossible. Suddenly, the hunter appeared again, more massive and intelligent than ever. But it was not alone. Several smaller predators flanked it, circling with calculated precision. Elena's heart raced. This was more than a physical challenge. It was a test of strategy, teamwork, and instinct. "Positions," Kale commanded. "Use the terrain. Use the traps. Remember your training." Elena took a deep breath and directed her crew. Marek used a trap they had set earlier, luring one of the smaller predators into a pit. Jonah created noise to distract another, while Elena guided the hunter toward a natural canyon. The creature roared, shaking the earth, but the humans moved as one, anticipating its every step. The battle was intense. Rain soaked the crew to the bone, and the air smelled of wet earth and fear. Yet they survived, outsmarting creatures far stronger than themselves. When the last predator was drawn into a trap, Elena allowed herself a brief moment of relief. Kyle approached, eyes calm but impressed. "You have learned quickly. Strength is not only in muscle but in mind and courage. Today you have proven both." But the relief was short-lived. The earth trembled violently, shaking trees and dislodging massive rocks. A storm unlike any they had seen swept through the forest, wind lashing at them, rain turning into sheets of acidic water. The valley floor began to flood, and massive roots ripped through the ground as the planet shifted beneath their feet. "Move. Higher ground," Elena shouted. The crew scrambled, using ropes, branches, and sheer determination to climb to safer areas. Jonah slipped and almost fell, but Marek caught him just in time. Together they reached a ledge, hearts pounding, soaked and exhausted, but alive. Kale surveyed the destruction. "The planet is teaching again," he said. "You must adapt or perish. The storm is your next trial." The humans and Deathworlders worked together, guiding the crew across unstable ground and natural bridges formed by fallen trees. They moved with a rhythm, trusting each other implicitly, knowing that hesitation could mean death. During a brief lull in the storm, Elena noticed something else. Strange markings on the rocks and trees faintly glowing in the dim light. She realized these were similar to the ancient symbols they had discovered near the ridge. "These markings, are they part of the planet's challenge?" she asked. Kale nodded gravely. "They are old, possibly created by beings who came before humans. The planet has many secrets. It teaches survival, but it also hides knowledge. Those who endure may learn, or face something greater." Their path led them to a narrow canyon where the storm intensified. Water rushed like a small river, and rocks tumbled dangerously from above. But the crew pressed on, using every skill they had learned, balancing on slippery surfaces, predicting the flow of water, and moving silently to avoid alerting predators hiding nearby. It was here that the ultimate test arrived. From the mist and rain emerged another massive creature, larger than the hunter, with armored scales and glowing eyes. It moved with surprising intelligence, as if it were assessing the humans as a threat. The crew froze for a moment, but Elena recovered quickly. "We work together," she shouted. "Use everything we've learned." The Deathworlders and Horizon crew coordinated perfectly. They lured the creature into a trap, distracting it with noise and decoys while Elena guided Jonah and Marek to trigger a collapse of rocks, creating a barrier between them and the predator. The creature roared, thrashing, but the humans held their ground, their brains and courage outmatching brute force. When the storm subsided, the crew looked around. The canyon was battered, the trees broken, the ground scarred, but they were alive. They had faced impossible odds and survived, united and stronger than before. Exhausted, the crew returned to the Deathworlder settlement. Fires had been lit, shelters reinforced, and food prepared. Kale approached Elena once more. "You have endured much. You have faced the hunter, the storms, and the shifting ground. You are ready for greater challenges. But remember, these trials are only the beginning. There are forces in this galaxy, far more dangerous than this planet. You have proven humanity can survive even impossible odds, but survival is only the first step." Elena nodded, catching her breath. "We will be ready. We have no choice but to be." That night, as the firelight flickered across their faces, the crew reflected on what they had endured. They were stronger, faster, and more aware. But most importantly, they were a team, bound by shared experiences, trust, and the realization that together, humans could face anything, even death worlds and predators bigger than themselves. Jonah, staring into the fire, spoke quietly. "I used to think humans were fragile, that we'd always need help, but now I see it differently. We survive because we adapt, because we fight, and because we never give up," Marek added, smiling wryly. "And because sometimes we're stubborn enough to keep going even when we have no idea what's ahead." Elena looked at both of them, pride swelling. "That's what makes us dangerous. That's what makes us human." The next morning, the crew was awakened by a faint hum in the distance. Kale had already noticed it. "It is the energy source," he said. "The one that caused the readings your ship detected. It is powerful, intelligent, and it may not welcome visitors." Elena's mind raced. They had survived predators, storms, and impossible terrain, but now they were about to confront something ancient and alien, a force that might test not only their survival skills but their very understanding of the universe. Kyle led them toward the source. The path was treacherous, but the crew moved with confidence. They had learned to anticipate danger, to trust instincts, and to rely on each other. The forest seemed almost to sense their resolve, creatures keeping their distance as if aware of their growing power. Finally, they arrived at a clearing. Before them stood a massive structure, older and more complex than anything they had imagined. Its surface pulsed with strange energy, and symbols glowed faintly across its surface. Elena's pulse quickened. "This is not just a relic," Kale said quietly. "It is a test, and it may be alive in ways we cannot understand." The crew approached carefully, the ground vibrating faintly beneath their feet. They could feel the power radiating from the structure, a force that demanded respect, intelligence, and courage. Elena turned to her team. "We've faced Deathworld predators, storms, and impossible terrain. We've survived because we trusted each other, adapted, and fought together. Whatever this is, we face it together." The structure hummed, almost responding to their presence. The air crackled with tension, and the forest around them seemed to hold its breath. The crew of the Horizon, guided by the Deathworlders, stood ready to confront the next stage of survival, a challenge that would push humanity to its very limits. In that moment, Elena realized something profound. Humans were strongest when they faced the impossible together. No planet, no predator, and no ancient alien force could crush the ingenuity, courage, and determination that defined them. The forest rumbled again, the energy of the structure pulsing stronger. The next trial was beginning, and the humans of Earth were ready. The alien structure pulsed with energy, illuminating the clearing in a ghostly green glow. The crew of the Horizon stood before it alongside the Deathworlders, their faces hardened with determination. Every step they had taken on this planet, every predator faced, every storm endured, every lesson learned had led to this moment. Elena raised her hand to signal the team. "Stay alert. Move carefully. This is unlike anything we've encountered before." Kale nodded. "It will test you." The structure senses intent, intelligence, and courage. Be ready for anything. The crew approached. As they stepped closer, the symbols on the surface began to shift, forming patterns that almost seemed alive. The air vibrated, carrying a low hum that resonated deep in their bones. It was as if the planet itself were speaking to them, testing their minds as well as their bodies. Jonah whispered, awestruck. "It's responding to us." Merrick studied the glowing symbols. "I think it's trying to communicate, but it's not in any language I've ever known." Elena clenched her fists. "Then we communicate the way humans always do, through courage, intelligence, and action." Kale stepped forward, signaling for the crew to follow. He had already learned to read the subtle cues of the structure's energy. "Trust yourselves. Use what you've learned. Work together." Suddenly the ground shook violently. The forest around them seemed to ripple, and massive predators drawn by the structure's energy emerged from the mist. The hunter had returned, joined by others. But this time the humans were ready. Elena and her crew moved with precision. Merrick triggered a trap that toppled a massive boulder, cutting off one predator. Jonah used the terrain to lead another into a natural pit. Elena coordinated the team, predicting the creature's movements, guiding them with signals and quick commands. Even the Deathworlders were impressed. Kale muttered under his breath, "They have learned faster than I expected." The creatures subdued, the crew approached the structure again. A low hum transformed into a pulsing vibration, almost like a heartbeat. A door, previously invisible, slowly slid open. Inside, a vast chamber stretched out, filled with alien technology that shimmered with energy. This is incredible," Jonah said, stepping carefully. "It's a machine? Or alive?" Kale studied it. "It is both. It is ancient, far older than humanity, but it responds to life, intelligence, and courage. It tests those who reach it. You have passed the first trials. Now comes the ultimate challenge." From the shadows of the chamber, another presence appeared. Tall, humanoid but alien, its skin shimmering like liquid metal, eyes glowing with understanding. It spoke not in words but in thoughts that entered the mind directly. "You are human. You survive against impossible odds. Prove your worth." Elena swallowed, standing tall. "We are human. We survive, we adapt. We overcome. That is what we are." The alien presence seemed to consider her words. Then the chamber transformed. Platforms shifted. Energy beams formed barriers and holographic predators appeared, simulations of the threats the crew had faced. Storms, beasts, unstable terrain, acid floods. Every challenge they had endured was now amplified. Kale spoke quickly. "This is a test of everything you've learned. Not only courage and skill, but teamwork, strategy, and ingenuity. You must survive together." Elena turned to her crew. "We've survived worse. The storms, the hunter, impossible terrain. We've made it through because we trusted each other. Now we do it again, together." The first wave of holographic predators attacked. Elena moved swiftly, guiding Jonah and Merrick to set traps and use the environment. Merrick lured one into an energy field that immobilized it temporarily. Jonah used a floating platform to create distance, dropping obstacles in the predator's path. Hours passed, but they continued, each wave harder than the last. Yet the crew adapted, using everything the Deathworlders had taught them. Observation, strategy, improvisation, and trust. Every mistake was a lesson. Every success a reinforcement of human ingenuity. The alien presence observed silently, testing their endurance and resilience. The crew began to feel exhaustion, but the bond between them strengthened. They were not just surviving, they were thriving under pressure, becoming more than ordinary humans. Finally, the last challenge emerged. A massive holographic creature, combining all the traits of the predators they had faced, surged forward. It was faster, stronger, smarter. Every instinct the crew had relied upon would be tested to its limit. Elena steadied her breath. "Remember everything. Watch each other. Predict, react, trust." The battle was intense. Merrick used quick maneuvers to distract the creature. Jonah triggered energy barriers, channeling it into a corner. Elena calculated each movement, coordinating the team perfectly. The creature roared, forcing them to adapt on the fly. When the creature finally fell into a containment field, the chamber went silent. The alien presence shifted, its form glowing brighter. Then it communicated once more, this time in words. "You have proven your worth. You are human. You survive against impossible odds. You are welcome in this galaxy." The chamber relaxed. The energy dissipated. The crew stood exhausted but triumphant. Elena looked at her team. "We did it. We survived together." Kale approached, pride evident in his eyes. You have surpassed expectations. You are no longer just visitors to this planet. You have shown the strength, intelligence, and courage of humanity. As the humans prepared to leave, a subtle hum echoed from the structure. Small energy beacons left by the ancient beings began sending signals into deep space. Elena realized the significance. The galaxy was now aware of humans, not as fragile explorers but as survivors, Deathworlders in training, capable of thriving in the harshest environments. Jonah looked at the sky. So we're famous now? Out there in the galaxy? Elena smiled. No, we're stronger now. That's all that matters. The galaxy will notice when humans show what we are capable of. But first, we survive, we endure, and we keep growing. The crew returned to the forest with Kale and the Deathworlders, walking among the ancient trees that had once tested their limits. They carried knowledge, experience, and a profound understanding of what it meant to be human. Every step reminded them of the storms, predators, and trials they had faced, and how their courage and intelligence had carried them through. Before leaving the planet, Kale addressed them one last time. Some of us will stay. This world is our home, but you will return. Carry what you have learned. Show humanity at its best. Teach others what it means to endure. You are the legacy of the Deathworlders. Elena nodded, a mixture of pride and sorrow. They had grown stronger than she could have imagined. Humanity was not fragile. Humanity could adapt, survive, and thrive even in worlds designed to kill. As the horizon lifted off the planet, the crew looked back at the dense forests, the jagged cliffs, and the glowing ruins. They had come as stranded explorers. They left as warriors, survivors, and ambassadors of human resilience. In orbit, Elena finally allowed herself to relax. The galaxy stretched before them, vast and full of unknown dangers. But the humans of Earth had faced the impossible and emerged stronger. They were no longer just ordinary humans. They were Deathworlders in spirit, capable of surviving what no one else could endure. Jonah, staring at the stars, whispered, "So, what now?" Elena smiled, her eyes bright with determination. "No, we keep surviving. We keep exploring. And we show the universe what humans are truly capable of." And somewhere far across the galaxy, the signals from the ancient structure traveled, carrying a simple message. Earthlings. The Deathworlders of old. The survivors of impossible worlds, they live, and they will endure. The crew of the Horizon knew it was true. Humanity would survive because they were not defined by weakness but by courage, intelligence, and the relentless will to overcome. The stars beckoned, challenges awaited, and humans were ready.